Before we begin, please hit that like and subscribe button. Now you see, personally, I've always found the idea of old homes charming and still a little creepy. There is so much history in older homes that you never know what to expect or what you will get. Now this story is a perfect example of why. The pale woman in the window. It was well past midnight when Rachel finally pulled into the driveway of her new house, exhausted from a day of moving boxes. The neighborhood was silent, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears and makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. The house itself loomed dark and uninviting, the porch light flickering weakly against the heavy blackness of the night. Rachel sighed as she grabbed her bag and stepped out of the car. She paused for a moment, staring up at the second-floor window. She could have sworn she saw a shadow move. A trick of her tired eyes, she decided, and shook her head. "You're just tired," she whispered to herself. It was an old house. Shadows and creaks were part of its charm, or so the overly enthusiastic realtor had insisted. Rachel hadn't cared. She needed the space, the solitude, and the fresh start. She didn't want to think about what she was leaving behind, and above all, she had always wanted a house that was a work in progress. She had always dreamed of fixing up her own place the way she wants it. Inside, the air was stale and musty, like it had been trapped for decades. The previous owners left furniture behind, an old rocking chair and a scratched-up dresser. She unpacked just enough to find her bed, changed into pajamas, and collapsed under the covers. By the time she climbed into bed, her body ached for rest, and her eyes were heavy. But sleep didn't come easily. The silence of the house was unsettling, broken only by the occasional groan of the wooden floorboards settling. She kept telling herself it was just an unfamiliar space, the kind of discomfort that would fade once the house felt like home. Then came the tapping. Soft, rhythmic, like fingertips against glass. Tap, tap, tap. Rachel sat up in bed, her heart pounding. She strained her ears, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. The tapping continued, steady and deliberate, sending chills crawling up her spine. She slipped out of bed and crept toward the window, each step slow and hesitant. The tapping stopped abruptly. Peeling back the curtain, she peered out into the darkness, but there was nothing there, just her overgrown backyard shrouded in shadows. Feeling silly, she climbed back into bed. "It's nothing," she told herself. "Just your imagination." But as soon as she turned off the light, it started again. This time it was louder. Closer. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. She didn't want to look, but something compelled her to. She turned her head toward the bedroom door, and her blood turned to ice. Through the faint sliver of moonlight streaming in from the window, she saw a pale, gaunt face staring at her from the hallway. The figure was impossibly tall, its body stretched and thin like it had been pulled too tightly. Its face was expressionless, its skin the sickly white of something long dead. And its eyes, deep, black pits that seemed to pull the light from the room, were fixed directly on her. For a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then the figure stepped back into the shadows of the hallway, disappearing from view. Rachel bolted out of bed and slammed the door shut, locking it with trembling hands. She pressed her back against the door, her heart hammering in her chest. "This isn't real," she whispered to herself over and over. "You're just tired." But then she heard it again. The tapping. Tap, tap, tap. This time, it was coming from her bedroom window. Her entire body stiffened as a cold dread washed over her. Slowly, almost against her will, she turned to face the window. The pale woman was standing on the other side of the glass, impossibly still, her dark, empty eyes locked onto Rachel's. The window was on the second floor. Rachel's mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. The woman didn't move, didn't blink, just stared, her face pressed too close to the glass, as if she were trying to peer into Rachel's soul. The tapping started again, soft and deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. But the woman wasn't moving her hands. Her head tilted slowly to one side, the motion unnatural, like her neck was breaking under the weight. The tapping grew louder, echoing in Rachel's ears, drowning out her own thoughts. She couldn't take it anymore. With a scream, she threw herself under the covers, pulling them over her head like a child hiding from the monsters in the dark. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps, and she squeezed her eyes shut, praying for morning to come. The tapping stopped. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Rachel dared to peek out from under the blanket, her heart pounding in her ears. The pale woman was gone. The next few days were rough. Rachel didn't sleep. Not really. She sat up all through the nights with the lights on, gripping a baseball bat she found in the garage during her explorations through the house during the day. Not like it would really help, but it gave her a sense of protection. Mornings brought no comfort. Her reflection looked wrong in the mirror. Her eyes were sunken, and her skin had taken on a grayish tinge from lack of sleep. She called her sister, pleading for her to visit. "Please," she said. "Something's wrong with this house." "Ratch," her sister said gently. "You've had a rough year. Maybe it's stress. I'm telling you, someone's in here." "Did you call the police?" Rachel hesitated. What would she say? That a ghost was knocking on her second-floor window during the nights? "I'll come visit," her sister finally said. "Tomorrow." Rachel drove into town later that day and searched the public library. She needed answers. She found articles there. They were old, faded, and yellowed. This house had a history. A child, Eliza, had died there in the 1920s. She fell from the second-story window. Her mother went mad with grief. Neighbors claimed they saw the woman talking to empty air and cradling invisible things. Then the mother died without explanation. Over the years, tenants complained of nightmares, sightings, and unexplained disappearances. The final article showed a grainy photograph of the house. In the upper window, there was a pale face. Rachel copied it all and went back home. The next day, her sister Jenna arrived. Rachel told her what had happened to her in the house, and then showed her what she had found at the library. She didn't believe her at first, laughed off the ghost story, until night fell. Rachel awoke to Jenna screaming, but when Rachel got to her room, she saw no sign of Jenna. Jenna had disappeared that night. Rachel called the police, and they investigated but found nothing. No sign of Jenna at all, and since Jenna went missing, Rachel haven't seen the pale woman. Then one night when Rachel went to bed around midnight, she heard the sound once again. Tap, tap, tap. Rachel screamed and dove under the covers. The tapping stopped. Minutes passed before she peeked out. The window was empty. Relief washed over her, and she squeezed her eyes shut for a moment. Then she opened her eyes and she glanced at the window again, just to be sure, and froze. The pale woman was standing in the corner of the room, her empty eyes fixed on Rachel. And this time, for the first time since she started seeing the pale woman, she was smiling.